Hello, my name is Kariana Keller,
And I'm Faye Swayze.
and the title of our performance is The Red Wave, How Russian Citizens Altered Their Country's History by Fighting for Change. In January of 1905, revolution broke out in St. Petersburg, Russia, as thousands of citizens took to the streets, refusing to return to work until their demands were met. These demands included a living wage, an 8-hour workday, affordable housing, and public education. This inspiring protest is what is now often referred to as the event that began the Russian Revolution.
That bloody Sunday, hundreds covered the streets, wounded or dead, and the myth of the good Tsar who cared about and wished to protect his people bled to death in the snow outside the Winter Palace, along with the victims of the mass shooting.
This revolution remained stagnant in Russia for another decade as tension continued to rise within the peasants and the working class, united against the Tsar.
This eventually boiled over in the February Revolution of 1917, where the Tsar abdicated, giving power over to the provisional government.
And that brings us here, to a factory in Moscow, Russia in September of 1917, as two factory workers discuss the future of Russia in light of the recent worker strikes of the February Revolution. Elena, how's your brother doing? The one up in St. Petersburg. Are there any more updates on how he's recovering?
No, I keep waiting for more news. I can't believe it's already been 7 months since the revolution. I'm just glad he's still alive.
Yeah, I know some people who weren't so lucky, but at least we know that their sacrifice won't be in vain. I mean, now we have this new provisional government.
Well, sure, but I mean, why haven't things actually changed? Why are we still living side by side in these factories, both day and night, and barely making enough to survive?
Honestly, you're right. I thought that after the February Revolution and the provisional government took over, promising more quality, or at least better working conditions, that this country would start to get on the right track. But honestly, I think it's gotten worse.
Hey, a couple of workers, including myself, have been meeting a couple of times a week to talk about the government and what needs to change. We want real change, where the working class is seen. If you want, you can join our meeting tonight.
How are you planning on fixing everything?
Well, right now we're talking about moving government power over to the Soviets.
The Soviets?
Yes, unlike the Tsar and the provisional government, they plan on moving government power from the upper 10% to the rest of us citizens.
This sounds familiar.
Natalia, imagine what could happen if people like you and me were put in government positions. What balance we could create. We could centralize power.
Yeah, but how are you planning on overthrowing the government? Are you going to organize any strikes, like back during the February Revolution, where over 1,000 people died? I'm not so sure about this.
Natalia, don't you see? The only change that can happen is if we speak up. We can't just stay silent.
But do you honestly think that we can trust the Bolsheviks? I mean, their promises sound a little too similar to the provisional governments, and look where that left us.
Natalia!
Look, I'm just saying, I think we need to use more caution around who we put our trust in. Guess all we can do now is wait and pray that these new changes won't be like the last. 2 months later, the October Revolution broke out. Little blood was shed, but the provisional government was practically replaced overnight. Doing little to resist the change, the Bolsheviks were in charge. Our focus shifts now to Grand Duchess Maria Romanov, daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, living in Siberia, a temporary home for the Romanovs after the abdication of the Tsar.
Oh, Kira!
Yes, Maria?
Do you mind helping me with my hair?
Of course.
Thank you. I miss the luxury of the old palace. I don't understand how our people could rise up against us after everything we did to help them. I mean, our country's in the middle of war. Do they really think they can handle themselves even half as well as my father?
I know this has been really hard on you.
I mean, everything just changed so quickly. Just last February, my father was still on the throne, leading our country to war against powerful empires like Germany and the Ottoman Empire. And to think, when he first declared we were going to war, the people cheered and practically worshipped my father. What changed?
Well, I mean,
Perhaps they didn't think we were doing that. I'm not blind. Me and my sisters worked in the infirmaries during the war. We had enough stories from the soldiers about what life was like for the common people. I mean, sure, Russia wasn't perfect, but it certainly isn't any better now.
Well, the people just wanted to say, well, that and something other than reboiled cabbage soup for once in their life.
Well, sure, but I mean, have things actually changed at all since the provisional government was put in place?
Not really. They claimed to be a democracy, but chose to stay in the war. So when the Bolsheviks came along, they revealed the corruption in the government and promised that under their rule, this country would no longer be run by the upper 10% of Russia, but rather by the rest of us citizens, the people who actually make up a majority of the country, and to do a lot to keep this country running. But if I'm being honest, this country's turned violent. We're on the brink of civil war. The economy's dropped, and it's nearly impossible to live here. Safe to say, The Bolsheviks aren't nearly what everyone had hoped.
My father told me he'd abdicated, in hopes that the people who wished to be rid of me would be capable of making a success out of the war and saving Russia. But now he just believes he's done Russia an ill turn by making way for the Bolsheviks. And I just hope Russia doesn't fall apart.
We now join a local newsboy in New York City, New York, in May of 1920, as news is revealed about Russia's reform and how it affects America. Extra, extra! Read all about it. 2 more immigrants arrested. Italian immigrants, Sacco and Vanzetti behind bars. But is America still safe? Get it here. You there, sir. Read about how you can help prevent communism in America.
Communism in America? It's already been 2 years since that Tsar abdicated and the provisional government was put in place. How can America still be scared of this new wave of communism?
Well, sir, you're going to have to buy a tape to see for yourself.
Fine then. I'm sorry. I'm a Russian immigrant, but I'm not communistic. Me and my family escaped Russia during the war. We're just trying to make a new lives for ourselves here in America. And I'm just trying to understand everything that happened to my country in the past several years.
Finally, an inside perspective. I've been reading the news day after day, but all I can find is that everyone is terrified of this supposed wave of communism.
Well, for Russia, communism isn't the only major change. For example, the Tsar abdicated back in 1917.
Right, I think I kept something. Oh, yes, here. The Tsar wrote, "The destiny of Russia, the honor of our heroic army, the welfare of the people, and the whole future of our dear fatherland demand that the war should be brought to a victorious conclusion, whatever the cost."
Whatever it costs.
Yes. Oh, and here. We have thought it well to renounce the throne of the Russian Empire and to lay down the supreme power. But if the Tsar laid down the supreme power, who's in charge of the government now?
Well, the Soviets became a representative body alongside the provisional government.
The Soviets, that's where they come in. And then came Lenin, and then they fully took over with communism.
Yes, with Lenin came the Red Army, and the Red Army brought on communism, stirring controversy. But soon, the White Movement formed, which was a group of different kinds of people, united against the Tsar. But thus far, the White Movement hasn't been successful in stopping the Red Army, so I don't see Russia changing anytime soon.
So the Bolsheviks are just in charge now?
Yeah, and America is still fearing for their lives over this next wave of communism.
But do you think communism's going to spread here? I mean, there are a lot of Russian immigrants, and not all of them believe what you do.
Well, I can't say for sure, but America's sure scared it will. In New York City, in this year alone, 5,000 Russian immigrants are arrested, and next year there's talk of deporting them without fair trial. I'm worried for my family. What happens if I get deported? Who will protect them? Who will provide for them?
I don't know. But aren't you glad you bought the tape?
Is
I mean, if you come back tomorrow, I bet I can get more news all about your homeland.
Is everything in this country about selling that thing?
The Soviets continued to control Russia for many more decades until December 25th of 1991, when the hammer and sickle were lowered and replaced with the Russian tricolor flag, which still waves over Russia to this day.
Even though communism did not remain in the Russian government, the ideals that they instituted continue to alter forms of government and still affect Russian citizens to this day.
Revolutions broke out around the world as a result of the Russian Revolution, touching China, Vietnam, North Korea, and Cuba.
The revolution was a major turning point in the history of Russia, and it also affected political institutions, the working class, workers' rights, and labor unions. And it created strong divides between communist and democratic countries. The fear of communism continued to influence geopolitics throughout the 20th century and beyond.
This revolution ushered in a new era of mankind, the era of socialism, which would then in turn develop into full communism.
The world that we know today, both socially and politically, began in Russia with the people's hope for a better future.
Thank you.
Thank you.